Mrs.
Hi.
Jackson.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Good. Okay, so we are here to talk about Tegan tonight.
Uh-huh.
I have had a pleasure having Tegan in my third grade class.
Good.
She has been just so fun. She's so inquisitive and is always asking questions and really into science. She loves the science.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
Tonight we are just going to be talking about reading specifically and some assessments that Tegan has had. And then I'll kind of help you through kind of the purpose and the details and the scoring details of the assessments. I'll show you her scores. We'll talk about what those mean, and then I'll kind of give you a little summary of what we've been doing to help Tegan progress. Okay?
Yep.
Perfect. So the first assessment that was given to Tegan is called the FAST assessment.
Okay.
And this is a universal screening process that is typically administered to kindergarten through third graders. And it's made up of 12 different subtests, and 4 subtests are given at each benchmark period. When I say benchmark period, I mean fall, winter, spring, and they only take 5 to 10 minutes. So she was tested with the FAST in the fall, in the spring, and then, winter and spring.
Okay.
And the purpose of the FAST is to best match reading skill development and reliably assess risk. And it provides profiles of students' strengths and weaknesses, and then I'm able to take those strengths and weaknesses and any difficulty that I see and make instructional decisions for not only Tegan but also for my class on just ways that I can better meet their needs. So it's really important that we look at their strengths and we're playing to those strengths, but then also addressing those weaknesses to help them progress. So the fastest scored, we have been given, through the state, we've been given target scores. So there's a set number for each grade level for each test, and then for each benchmark, so the fall, winter, spring, and that number represents the lowest score that a student can receive in order to be determined proficient, which means they're proficient in that skill or in that subtest. And if they score below that number, then they're considered below or at risk for not passing that. So here we have the subsets that she was tested for, and she was tested for the CBM, overall words correct per minute. So that CBM stands for curriculum-based measurement, and then obviously the WCPM is words correct per minute. And then the CBM oral reading fluency. So fluency is actually... Fluency is the combination of 3 things. It's the combination of rate, which is time, accuracy, and then expression. So reading with expression accurately and in a timely manner. So our cutoff, as I said, the cutoff goes up every year, or every benchmark, fall, winter, spring, benchmark period, I guess I should say. So in the fall, the cutoff was an 85, and she scored an 83. So we're very close to meeting that benchmark. And then in the winter, she scored a 90, and the winter, the cutoff was a 115, and then in the spring, she scored a 110, and the cutoff was a 129. So we are below, and these are her words read correctly per minute. So she read 83 words correct per minute, 90 words correct. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. But as you can see, we are below here with those scores. However, with her accuracy rate, which falls into that words correct per minute, she's at 96%, 96%, 98%.
Oh, okay.
So she's reading accurately, but we see that in order to read accurately, she has to slow down. So that tells us, I mean, she's doing well, but we have some work to do in that area. So does that make, that one's a little bit confusing. So now we are going to move on to the DSA, which is the Developmental Spelling Assessment. I'm sure your other children have probably had this, so you're probably familiar with this. But just an overview, the assessment is based on word knowledge and word study. It is broken up into 4 different stages. And then within each stage, there's 5 features. So it's kind of a broad category, and then it breaks it down into smaller pieces. And then these become the focus of the stage, so those features. They're given an oral spelling test based on the stage that they're in, And then those words that are for the spelling test focus on those features. And then the assessments are scored.
Okay.
The purpose of the DSA is to assess students' word knowledge and spelling skills. And obviously, spelling and word knowledge is going to play into how they are performing reading-wise. And so, again, it includes word study and working with different parts of the word. So, breaking them apart and looking at the vowels and looking at the consonants. And this assessment is used to place students in the proper word study group and then determine any needs or problem areas to better instructional decisions.
Okay.
So I'm able to look at those needs and those strengths and weaknesses to, again, make decisions about not only Tegan's instruction, but the whole class's instruction.
Okay.
And then for the scoring details, so for the stage score, we're going to have a stage score and then we're going to have a feature score. And again, the stage is kind of the overall and the features are the parts that are broken up below that.
Okay.
So if they receive a 12 or above, and 25 is the highest, then they'll move on to the next test. So one stage is the letter name. And if she were to score a 12 or above in the letter name, then she would move on to the within word stage.
Okay.
And then for the feature, they receive a score up to 5. But if they receive a 3 or below, then we know that some intervention needs to take place in order to help them meet that feature score, because the feature score plays into that overall stage score. Okay. So Tegan was assessed in the letter name, the within word, and the syllable juncture. And the letter name, in this stage, students develop an understanding of the alphabetic principle, and that basically just means that they understand that there's a link between the letters and the sounds, so that the letter A makes the or the A sound. So just understanding that link, and then this stage assesses initial and final consonants, short vowels, initial consonant blends and digraphs, affricates, and final consonant blends and digraphs. We won't go into details of those, but just know that they're all part of that letter name stage. And then for the within word stage, students begin the within word pattern stage when they can spell most one syllable in short vowel words. In this stage, we will focus on long vowels, our controlled vowels, other common long vowels, complex consonant, and abstract vowels.
Okay.
And then we move on to the syllable juncture stage, which is the one right before the last stage. So she was tested on 3 of the 4 stages. So in the syllable juncture, they focus on syllables and apply what they've learned about one-syllable words to longer multi-syllable words.
Okay.
So we're moving from one syllable like dog to 2-syllable like pancake.
Mm-hmm.
And this specific one has features on doubling, so doubling letters, and then also dropping the E to add the ED or the ING.
Mm-hmm.
And then other syllable junctures, long vowel patterns are controlled vowels, and stressed syllables and unstressed syllable patterns.
Okay.
So let's take a look at her scores. Again, so she was tested, these in bold here, with a letter name, the within word, and the syllable juncture. Those are all what I just described to you. And then the numbers represented here are her stage scores. Like I said, the feature scores are smaller. Those 0 to 3, or 0 to 5, excuse me. So these are the stage scores, and that goes from 0 to 25. So the numbers represented in the parenthesis is the stage score that students should reach by the end of the year. So with other assessments, we have a benchmark for each time they're assessed. So we have a benchmark for the fall, we have a benchmark for the winter, we have a benchmark for the spring. Whereas this one, we just have a benchmark that we want them to reach by the end of the year.
Okay. So
So when they start in my classroom, we are thinking, okay, by the end of the year, we want them to score an 8, or we want them to score 16, or whatever it might be. So if we look at the letter name, we can see, first of all, I should point out that letter name tests are typically given in kindergarten, so it is no surprise that your third grader, Deegan, surpassed that score of 8 with a 23 and again with a 24.
Okay.
And there was no point in testing her in the spring because we know that
Sure.
she's well above with that. Yeah, so she did exceptionally well in both the fall and winter. So again, there really wasn't a need to test her in the spring. With the within word stage, this is one that is typically given to first and second grade. And we saw a score of 9. This means that she needed some pretty intense intervention to get to that end of that, to get to that 18. Again, this is a first and second grade test, and she's a third grader, so by the end of second grade, she should have been at an 18, but was scoring a 9 in the fall of the third grade year. So we wanted to get her to that 18, and through some not only one-on-one intervention, but some small group instruction, working specifically on those features. So working on long vowels, R-controlled vowels, other common long vowels, and complex consonants. We were able to get her to a 19 with the cutoff again of the 18 by the end of the year. And then she jumped to a 22.
Okay.
So she's now there, which is good. And then with a 22 on the stage score, or even the 19 in the winter, I guess here. So she did score 19, which is above the 12. So then we did test her for the syllable juncture because she was able to move to the next score, or next stage, once she reached a 12 or above.
Okay.
But then we did test her there again just because she was just barely over the cutoff. And she scored a 22, which is great progress. So let's see. So, let's see here. So, the syllable juncture test is given in third grade, and the cutoff score is an 8 by the end of the year. She scored a 4, which shows us some pretty good hope that she would reach that 8 by the spring, but she actually scored a 7. So we're really, really close to meeting the benchmark. And when she enters fourth grade in the fall, she'll begin on this stage and receive some more intervention to help her reach that benchmark.
Okay.
So we're definitely close to meeting that, which is really great since she just this year went from a 9 of the within word and then moved on to the syllable juncture.
Good.
And again, in fourth grade, she'll start working on the doubling and the dropping the E to add the endings ed or ing. Other syllable junctures, long vowel patterns, are controlled vowels, and then the stressed and unstressed syllables. So do you have any questions about the spelling test? Okay. Again, we saw some great progress. And we're getting really close to her meeting that benchmark goal. Okay, we have 2 more tests, I believe, to look at. A lot of assessments going on, but all really good to figure out her strengths and weaknesses and what we need to work on. So, the next one is called the Basic Reading Inventory, or the BRI. And the BRI is individually administered and is used to help gather information for instructional decision-making and reading. So I've talked about that a lot, how we use these tests to find strengths and weaknesses that help us better plan for instruction.
Okay.
The purpose of the assessment is to help gain insight into a student's reading behavior and their reading ability. So this includes word identification, fluency, which again is that accuracy, rate, and prosody, which is expression, and then comprehension, which is understanding what you're reading. And the BRI gives me the ability to determine what reading level level Tegan is at, and then I can also determine what reading level all of my students are at. So we have 3 different levels. We have an independent level, an instructional level, and a frustration level.
Okay.
The independent level is the level at which the student reads fluently with excellent comprehension. So this is a book that they're able to pick up, read fluently, and understand everything that's going on. So they're reading it independently, no problems, no questions.
Okay.
They've got it. And then we have the instructional level, and this is the level at which the student can make maximum progress in reading with teacher guidance. So at the instructional level, this is where I might be reading a book to them, where they're able to comprehend with that guidance and with probing questions and things like that.
Okay.
And then the frustration level is the level at which a student is unable to pronounce many of the words and is unable to comprehend the material satisfactorily.
Okay.
So they're really struggling at this frustration level. So we aim to be, obviously we want students at that independent level, but there's always going to be an instructional level as well.
Okay.
Okay, so the scoring for this is a little bit tricky and a little bit confusing, so I'll do my best to kind of explain that to you. But the BRI is broken up into 3 different categories. Like I said, they're assessed on accuracy, comprehension, and fluency. And there are different score ranges for both accuracy and comprehension that determine what level, the levels that I just read to you, where they're at. So let's see. So if they are above, so we determine if they are above, at, or below grade level. A student who scores with a 95, which this is a percent, so they score a 95 or above, it's considered above grade level. And then when a student is reading at that level, that's their independent. And then if they score between a 90 and a 94, we consider them to be at grade level, and that's their instructional reading level. And then when a student scores an 89 or below, that is considered below, and then their frustration level.
Okay.
And again, those are percents. And when it comes to accuracy, a student who scores an 85 or above is considered grade level. And then again, we know that that's their independent level. And when they score between a 65 and an 84, that's the instructional level, and they're reading at grade level. And then a 64 and below is going to put them below frustration level. So that would be comprehension. And then a student who scores, a student who scores a 64 is at frustration level. The words per minute is done a little bit differently, so we have specific benchmarks that are given to us for each grade level that we would like students to meet. And these are ranges of numbers, and they change fall, winter to spring. So hopefully looking at her actual scores will make a little bit more sense of all of that. So in the fall, for fluency, we had the different ranges, but this actually puts her at in need of intervention. So she was considered below, with a need for intervention in the fall, and then again in the spring. In the winter, she was considered proficient with a score of 110, and I didn't put all the ranges there, but the chart that I have has, they're either much above, below, or much below.
Okay.
So I put the range here for below, and then the range here for that above, and then the range here for that below again. So you can see that she fell right in between there with the 70, with the range of 65 to 78, and then here it was 93 to 122, and she fell right in the middle.
Okay.
And then again here with those ranges as well.
Okay.
Some of the interventions that might take place would be putting her in the small group that focuses on fluency only. And then again, fluency includes accuracy, rate, and expression, and then some comprehension. So we would probably focus on sight words as well as strategies that will help teen keep track of her thinking as she reads. And then we use running records and other forms of assessment to keep track of rate, which is the speed at which she's reading. And then let's take a look at accuracy and comprehension. I don't see any immediate concerns. She's performing either above or at grade level.
Good.
So the above is going to be that darker green. So in the spring, she was at a 97, and then for comprehension, she was 95, and that, again, is 85 or above. So she's well above for comprehension.
Good.
And then for accuracy, she was at that instructional level, which again is still at grade level.
Okay.
So for accuracy and comprehension, she's either at grade level or above grade level, which is great. And with some more work with comprehension and accuracy, hopefully that fluency score will also continue. And like I said, we'll do some small group intervention with sight words, but then also helping her keep track of her thinking and using practicing the rate and all of that. Hopefully will help us reach that grade level or above score. So with that being said, we'll just continue in that small group, small group and large group aspects of accuracy and comprehension. So are there any questions about that one? Okay. And I believe our last assessment is the Iowa assessments. I'm sure you are very familiar with the Iowa assessments.
Yes.
They used to be called ITBS, but
Right.
they're now Iowa assessments. Iowa assessments are given just in the winter.
Okay.
Schools can take them in the fall, winter, or spring, but we choose to take them annually in the winter. And they are norm reference tests that are given annually to 2nd grade through 12th grade. So this is just her second year of taking Iowa assessments. And they are assessed in areas of reading, math, science, social studies, and then written expression and vocabulary. Today we're just going to look at reading scores.
Okay.
The purpose of the assessment is to provide data to the government on achievement and progress. And then they're also used to determine progress throughout the year and gain insight on instructional needs. So the Iowa assessments are used for a lot of different purposes, but it really is helpful that we're able to report that data to the government. So a norm reference test, when I say that, it measures a student's score against what other students are achieving at the same on the same test. So we're comparing students from all over the state in 3rd grade on their test scores, if that makes sense. And then each grade below has a set range of scores for each different subject, and then these ranges are split into 3 different categories. So we have proficient, not proficient, or above. So it's a little bit, each test does it differently. So for the BRI, we had below, or much below, below, above, much above, whereas with this, we just have the 3 proficient, not proficient, or above. So it's a little bit more simple compared to what we just went through with the BRI.
Okay.
So we are going to look at her reading and vocabulary scores for the Iowa assessment. Here we had her at proficient. She was not above, but she was considered proficient for both reading and vocabulary. The range for proficient for reading was 170 to 208, and she scored a 178, which is great. And with the range for vocabulary, it was a 172 to a 208, and she scored a 185. So I'm very, very pleased with her vocabulary score. With her reading score, that is higher than the 170, but definitely some room for progress.
Okay.
So she's doing great in both aspects of reading and vocabulary. We'll continue to work on both of those skills through the interventions that have been previously mentioned. So the small group, large group instruction, one-on-one instruction, and hopefully we'll continue to meet those benchmark goals for the other assessments.
Okay.
And the great thing with all of these assessments, we're assessing different components, but all of these components play into that overall reading.
Sure.
With working on the spelling and working on the fluency, they're all going to play into each other. But overall, Tegan is doing great. There's definitely some need for improvement in some areas, which we have talked about. But again, we're going to do our best through small group interventions and kind of focusing in on those specific strengths and weaknesses of what she needs to work on. So are there any questions? I know that was a lot of information.
I don't think so. It all sounds good. We'll work with her at home too. So.
Okay, great. Do you have some idea of how you want to work with her, or are you in need of some ideas of what?
If you have some ideas, I really think a lot of it is just that she needs to slow down.
Yes, I agree. Definitely.
So if we can get her to slow down a little bit, I think that will help.
Okay, perfect. Well, I can send you a packet of some ideas.
That'd be great.
Each of my students has a folder that kind of has, obviously, all of this information, but then kind of their strengths and weaknesses, and then some details on what their small group interventions look like, so some of the activities that they're doing there. And then I can also send some books home, too, if you would like that as well.
That would be great.
So we'll get that set up. And again, she is just a pleasure to have in class.
Good. Thank you.
So much fun. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.